Hello everyone, we are the Group 2 of AE 113 class. Today, we are excited to show you the 20 functions and features that every accounting student or an accountant should know. Feel free to use the timestamps down below to jump to the section that interests you the most. Otherwise, why don't we jump at our PC and get started? Data validation. Data validation is a feature in Excel used to control what a user can enter into a cell. Data validation guarantees that the values in a particular column are logical data that fix certain parameters. I am going to show you this in a while. As you can see, I have a spreadsheet here listing the product code and name, its category, and also the unit price. The terms are also presented in the F column. This list will be important as we are going to use this for data validation as well as the VLookup function. Notice, in our example, the products are coded in 3 digits. So for consistency, I am just going to format this column very quickly so it will automatically transform into 3-digit code. So click custom and type in 000 and click OK. And let me hide these columns to avoid confusion. There. Data validation can be found in the Data tab. When we click on the Data tab, the Data ribbon appears and you can see in the Data Tools group, we have a button that says Data Validation. Now, how do we use this? The first step is to select the cells, or in this example, the column that I want to affect. The quickest way to do this is just to click the column F, and that will highlight the entire column F. Now, we are going to click on the Data Validation, and a pop-up or a dialog box will appear. As you can see right now, it allows any value. That means that anything that we type is accepted in this column. Now I want to change that to our specific product codes. If you can remember, our code ranges from 001 to 019 or 1 to 19. We need to select whole number and then other choices will appear. There are many choices right now for the data, but I want it to be in between 1 and 19. So we're going to click between and press 1 for the minimum and 19 for the maximum. Click OK. And there we have it. We can type in 1 and it will be accepted. It automatically transformed to 001 to a 3-digit code. Let's say 19. It's also accepted. Now what if we are going to type 25? As you can see, an error message will appear and it will say that the value that we have typed in does not match the data validation restrictions that we have defined for this column. The thing about item codes is that they're easy to memorize because it's just from 1 to 19 in this case. So what if we have the terms? Let's use another data validation technique for this. So we need to highlight first and then click the data validation. And here we need to allow a list. We need to provide a list. And again, like I said, the terms, we cannot memorize it if we have tons of terms. So it's better if we check the in cell drop down. And since we have clicked the list, we need to have a source. So for that, we're just going to click this list and click on the terms and then go back and click OK. So now we have these drop down boxes for our terms. And we can also add a data validation for dates because this is a credit sales for July. We have also selected a data for this that is only for July. So if we say we have to input 15 of August, error message will appear. VLookup. VLookup is one of Excel's most powerful lookup functions. VLookup is used to find a value in a table or range. Before we proceed to this demonstration, let's go to the list first, and we need to know the column index of our table. The code, or the first column, is column index number 1. The category is number 2, the product is number 3, and the unit price is number 4. We need to remember that because we are going to use that for our formula. To perform this function, we need to type $VLookup. And we are presented here the arguments of VLookup. We need to select the value to look up. And which value are we looking for? Is this one right here, the item code. And type comma and select where to look for the value. And that is a table array. We can look for it in the sheet, the list, and there's no need for us to highlight the headers, only the content of the table. After that, we are going to add a comma and type the number of column because we want the category. The category is the column index number 2. We're going to type 2 and we need the exact match for this one and click enter. So there you have it. Number 5 is cakes. And I am planning to handle this and apply this to all other data. So what I want to do is I will press F4 for this to be fixed. So, and then I'm just going to handle, and there you have it. And for the products, the same thing. What I like to do is to copy and paste, and then as you can see here, we just need to change this back to F2, and the product column index number is number 3. We change that, and there it's red velvet cake, and we can handle, and then same goes with the unit price. Control C, Control V, and then change this to F2. And for the unit price, it is number 4. So there, we are just going to click it. What we can do, because this one is the price, we can change it to currency. Okay, there. So there you have it. That's VLookup.
Flash Fill. Flash Fill is a special tool in Excel that analyzes the information you are entering and automatically fills your data when it senses a pattern. So let's try this function in this data that we have here. Let's try to apply this in the data of the term column. So here we can see that the net and the number of days are put together in one cell. And let's say I want it to be separated because I only need the number of days the invoice is due. So to quickly split these two, I need no more formulas or any tools that are here in these tabs. I just need to use Flash Fill function to enter my desired data instantly without any more inputting it all manually. So to do this, we need first to input the data that we want. So I'm going to type 10 EOM. So let's try to drag this here. So as we can see, I was just able to copy what I inputted except for the number which were following the series of number, but still different from the data that we have here because it is in a default. But now I'm going to use the Flash Fill function. So I will click this icon here and I select Flash Fill. So here it is. We can see that the number of days were automatically inputted because it tries to recognize a pattern from here and tries to apply them here. So this function can also be accessible in 3 more ways. So first, let's click Ctrl Z to undo. Then, let's input again our data 10 EOM. So to use this, let's use the shortcut key of flash fill, which is Ctrl E. And here it is. We can see that we were able to quickly fill in again the column with our desired data from here using the shortcut key of this function. So another way is to access this manually. So let's again Ctrl Z. So let's leave this 10 EOM here as it is. So let's go to Home tab, and in the editing group we can see the fill button. Let's click this, and in the last portion we can see the flash fill function. Then let's click, and here it is. We can again quickly input the data from here to here using the flash fill function found in the Home tab. So flash fill is also accessible in the Data tab. Under the Data Tools group, we can see a flash fill button. So if we click this, we can also get the same result here. So this function can be applied when you want to quickly separate or combine your data from a single column or into different columns. EOMONTH. EOMONTH, or end of month, is a function that calculates the last day of the month after adding a specified number of months to a date. So it helps to calculate maturity dates or due dates that fall on the last day of the month, or it can be the end of the next months or previous months. So in our data here, I will apply this function in calculating the due dates of the invoice having the end of the month terms as well as the 10 days after the end of the month terms. So here, let's use the data that we had inputted using the flash fill function as our reference. But first, let's hide the columns that were irrelevant in computing the end of the month function to avoid confusions in selecting our desired data. So let's highlight invoice number column up to the amount due column, then Ctrl Shift down to highlight all the cells in the selected column. Then let's click the shortcut key Ctrl 0 to quickly hide these columns. So let's zoom this in for us to have a clear view of our data. And now, as we can see, only the invoice date and the terms column were left. And now I will filter the rows which don't have the end of the month terms. So let's highlight this data here, then Ctrl Shift down. Then click Ctrl Shift L as a shortcut key for filter. Then let's click this icon here and unselect all the items that are not having the end of the month terms. Let's unselect this, leaving these two behind since they have end of the month terms. Then let's click OK. After that, let's sort it out from A to Z. Let's go to the Home tab, and in the Editing group, let's click Sort and Filter button, then Sort A to Z. So here it is. As we can see, we only have few data here that has an end of the month terms and 10 days after the end of the month terms. So now let's try to calculate the due date. So let's input the formula here, equals EOMONTH, open parenthesis, the start date is our invoice date, comma, and the number of months that you want to jump. And in this data, I am trying to calculate the end of the current month. So I will input 0, then close parenthesis, and then enter. So we have here a number since it is in a general format. So let's change it to a short date format. So I got here 31st of July 2021. Let's drag it here since they have the same terms. Now we can see that the 31st of July is the due date of these invoices here. Now, what if we want to get the 10th day after the end of the month. So let's input the formula here again, equals EOMONTH, open parenthesis, then the invoice date as our start date, comma, 0, close parenthesis. Then to add the 10 days, let's input plus sign after the parenthesis, then 10. After that, let's send this down so we can automatically see what is the end of the month of each data. EDATE. EDATE is a date and time function in Excel which adds or subtracts a given number of months into a date and gives us a date in a numerical format. We can use EDATE when we want to calculate expiration dates, maturity dates, due dates, and other dates in the future or past. So let's try this function in the due date column here using the data that we have. But first, I will hide some columns just to avoid confusion when we start to calculate. So from invoice number column up to amount due column, highlight this, then Control 0 to hide these columns. So here in this term column, we have different term dates. We have due after 1 month, net 7, net 15, due after 2 months, and so on. So I will filter this so that I can see which data have terms that are due in 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. So this, I will highlight this column. Then in the editing group, I will click sort and filter, then filter. Then I will click this icon, then unselect all the items that are not due after 1 or 2 or 3 months. So I will leave this 3 here since these are the terms that are due after 1 or 2 or 3 months. Then click OK. Then I will sort this from A to Z. So here it is. We can now see that these were the datas that have terms due after 1 or 2 or 3 months. Now let's apply the EDATE function. So I will zoom this in so that we have a better view of our date. Now let's say I want to move 2 months from this date into the future date. So here 2 months. So I will input this cell, the formula equals EDATE, open parenthesis. Our start date will be our invoice date. Then comma. So I'm just gonna input 2 for months since, as I said earlier, I want to see the date 2 months from the start date. Then close parenthesis, then enter. So we got a number here since it is in a general format. So I will change it to short date format. So we got here 1st of September 2021. So I will drag this down here since they have the same terms. And here it is. We got 6th of September. And if you want to see 3 months from the start date, we'll just simply input the formula again equals EDATE, open parenthesis, then the start date, comma, then the months, which is 3, close parenthesis, then enter. So let's change it to short date. And now we can see that the 5th of October will be the 3rd month of the invoice date. So let's drag this here. You can also apply this due after 1 month. EDATE, then start date, comma, then 1 month, then close parenthesis, enter. So let's drag this down here. So here. So notice that the day is just the same with the start date, except from the months and years, which can be different. So all of these here are 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months from this date that we have here. Workday. Workday function in Excel is a date function which is used to calculate the work date coming before or after a starting date. Working days exclude weekends and any dates identified as holidays. So here, I will use the data that I had inputted using the flash fill function as our cell reference. I will also exclude the weekends and the public holidays in the calculation. But before that, I will hide some columns first just to avoid confusion when we start to calculate. So starting from invoice number up to the amount due column, I will highlight this, Control Shift down, then Control 0 to quickly hide these columns. Now, in the term column, which were inputted using the flash fill function, I will now sort it out from A to Z. I will zoom this first so that we can clearly see our data here. So let's say I want to see the date, which is 7 working days after this date. Since our terms here is 7, let's see the 7th working day from this start date. So I will now input here in the due date column the formula of the Workday function, which is equals Workday. So as we can notice here, there are two different versions, which is the latter is the updated version where you can choose your desired weekends because not all weekends are Saturdays and Sundays. So now I'll choose the updated version since it is a flexible one. So for our start date, let's use the invoice date, comma, for the number of days, we use 7. Because as I said earlier, I want to see the 7th working day of this invoice date. And our term here is 7, comma. So let's say our weekends are only Sunday. So I will input 11 because here in our reference here, the Sunday only is number 11, comma. For the public holidays, we have already provided a list here in the sheet 2. So I'll just highlight this, then go back to sheet 1, then enter. So I have here a number since it is in a general format. So I will change it in a short date format. So I got here the 9th of July 2021. So here it is. It means that July 9, 2021 is the 7th working day from this start date. So I will now cross-check this in our calendar here in sheet 2 if it is true that July 9 is the 7th day of the start date. Since July 1 is our working day, let's start counting here in July 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the 7th day is really the 9th of July. And notice that in the calculation, weekend, which is July 4, it is Sunday, is not included in the counting of the working days. So you can use Workday to calculate either invoice, due dates, expected delivery dates, or the number of days of work performed.
Conditional formatting. We use conditional formatting to help us visually explore and analyze data, detect critical issues, and identify patterns and trends. A conditional format changes the appearance of cells on the basis of conditions that you specify. In this set of data, we can use conditional formatting to highlight the cells where the date is past the due date. I'm going to show you first what day today is, and to do that, I am going to use the today function. So today is the 31st of July 2021. Now this function is dynamic, meaning when I open this file 5 days later, the date will change to the 5th of August. Now let's see how to use this to highlight dates that are past the due dates. This will show that this particular transaction and the amount balance is already due. First, I'm going to select this entire data range here. Then we go to Home tab. And here in the Styles group, we can see the conditional formatting. If we're going to click that, we are given sets or tons of options. And go to highlight cells rules and then less than. And here I would type the today function and specify the formatting. Let's change this to today. And we click OK. We're just going to use the light red fill for this one. After we click OK, as you can see, it is highlighting all those cells where the date is less than today's date. which mean that this date has already passed. Like I said, this keeps on changing as days goes by. If we open this file a few days from now, then it's going to change. It is going to add those cells where the date is due. So if I'm going to open this 5 days from now, these cells will be highlighted. This one too. And we can also use conditional formatting to highlight cells where due date is within a few days range from today. So let's say I want to highlight all the cells where the due date is in the next 5 days. I would again select this entire data range, go to Home tab, click on Conditional Formatting, and here I would click between. Here I would type today, the today function, and this one I would type today plus 5. This is going to highlight all those that are between today's date and 5 days from today. We are just going to click yellow, this one, and click OK. As you can see, it is highlighting those dates here and this date here, which means that the due date is near for these transactions.
Go to Special. Go to Special is a tool within Microsoft Excel that enables you to quickly select cells of a specified type within your Excel worksheet. So, with this example data here, let's say you want to see the cells that have constants and cells which have data validation. So, to do this, there are three ways in accessing the Go to function. You can either press F5 key and dialog box will appear, and click on the special button below. Or you can also press Ctrl G, and same as the result of F5 key, a dialog box will pop up, then click special button or simply click Alt S. There you will find a large list of options. And the last way to access this function is go to the Home tab. And under the Find and Select, choose Go to or Go to Special, and then the dialog box will appear. And now you can now select your desired option. So, as I said earlier, let's try to see which cells have constants. Here, we can see many options that we can use. And since I want to identify the constants, let's click the constants. And then OK. Then here it is, we can notice that only 9 columns were highlighted. So it means that these are the only cells that have constants. Now let's try to see the cells with data validation. Let's go to Find and Select, and then select the data validation. Then OK. We can notice that only 3 columns are highlighted, which means that these were the only ones which have a data validation. With the highlighted cells, you can also easily color them, change the font, or any formatting type that I want. There are a lot of options in the Go to Special, and you can choose anything you need to find out. Number formatting shortcuts. Number formatting shortcuts allows us to quickly apply some of the popular number for formatting options, including the currency, percent, date, and many more. There are various keyboard shortcuts that we can use instead of the number drop-down list on the Home tab to apply different number formatting. So, in this data that we have here, let's apply some of these number formatting shortcuts. Let's apply it in the unit price column. Our data here are shown as integer values because it is in a general format. So to quickly change it to currency format, let's highlight the column by pressing Ctrl Shift down. To highlight the whole column selected, then press Ctrl Shift 4 to change the formatting to currency. Now we can see the peso sign here in our data. Then if I want it to be in a number format, I will just use Ctrl Shift 1 where it adds the thousand separators as well as two decimal places like this.
Excel round. This function rounds a number to a specified number of digits. In this case, I want to know the rounded amount of the unpaid portion of the product by customers. By the way, there are choices of how many decimal places you want to round, and this time, I will be rounding these amounts into whole number, into the nearest tens, and into the nearest hundreds. To perform this, let's start by typing the formula equal sign, followed by the word round, open parentheses, and click this number, and don't forget to put comma. Type 0 to indicate that we'll be rounding this amount into whole number. Input, close parentheses, and then click enter. These are the rounded amount of the unpaid portion by the customers. Let's proceed to rounding this amount again into the nearest tens. Let's start by typing equal sign followed by the word round, open parentheses, and click this amount, input comma, and instead of typing 0, let's type number 1 to indicate that we will be rounding this portion to the nearest tens, close parentheses, and then click enter. These are the rounded amount to the nearest tens. Lastly, let's proceed to rounding this amount again into the nearest hundreds. Let's start by typing equal sign, followed by the word round, open parentheses, and click this amount, input comma, and instead of typing 1, we will be using number 2 to indicate that we will be rounding this amount into the nearest hundreds. Close parentheses and then click enter. These are the rounded amount into the nearest hundreds. So this is the power of the Excel round function. Aggregate function. This function allows us to summarize values, and it gives us the ability to ignore error values as well as hidden cells. In this case, I want to know the total sum of the amount still unpaid by the customer starting from the first day until in the 15th day of July transactions. First, let's put an error to test how effective the aggregate function is. So here, we got the result that the sum function doesn't recognize error values. But with the use of the aggregate function, we got to ignore error values. So let's start by typing the formula equal sign, followed by the word aggregate, open parentheses, and click number 9 as equivalent for sum. And don't forget to input comma, click number 6 to ignore error values, input comma, and to get an array, we're gonna use the shortcut key, Control Shift, arrow down, close parentheses, and click enter. So here, the aggregate function got to ignore error values. The result, or the total sum of the amount still unpaid by the customers is 92,127.46. Now, you might say that the aggregate function and the sum function is the same, but because of the aggregate function, we got to ignore error value. So this is the power of the aggregate function.
Automatic subtotals. Applying automatic subtotals is a quick way to summarize data in a list since this can automatically add subtotals without using or writing any single function. To apply this, here we can see various data where we can apply this function. So for example, let's try to see the subtotals of every location in the data. Before applying this function though, your data must be first organized and sorted out. Now, since I want to see the subtotals of the amount due of each location, I will highlight the column of location. So I will click Ctrl Shift down to quickly highlight all columns, then go to sort and filter in the home tab and sort it from A to Z. Then click sort. Now that my data are already sorted out, I will now proceed to the data tab. And in the outline group, select the subtotal button. Now we can see the dialog box. Here it asks where our subtotals will be added. So I want it in the column or location column. Then next is which function will you use? And I want it be sum, so I click sum. But you can also use other functions. It only depends on what you need. So next is what cell will be added. So I choose the amount due column. So I just want to leave this 3 here as it is. Then click OK. So here we can see that the rows were automatically added according to location. And in the last cell here, I was also able to get the grand total of the amount due. And if you want to remove these subtotals, just go back to the outline group and select subtotals, and then you can see the remove all options. Then automatically all subtotals were removed. Formula auditing. Formula auditing function provides you an easy way to find which cells are contributing in the calculation of a formula in the active cell and which formulas are referring to the active cell. So I will apply formula auditing in this data here in the amount due and unit price column. So to apply this, I will click a cell in the amount due column. So I will click it here. Then let's go to the formula tab. Then under the formula auditing group, click your desired tools. And since I want to see what cells that directly affect the value of my selected cell, I will select the trace precedent tool. And now I can automatically see a tracer arrow indicating that these two cells, the total amount and paid column, are directly affecting the amount due column. To remove these arrows, just simply click the remove arrows. And if I want to see which cells are affected by the value with the cell I currently selected, like for example in a unit price here in I4, I will just again go to the formula auditing group and select the trace dependence tool. Now I can see that these two columns, quantity and total amount, are dependent on the value in the cell I4. And again, when I want to remove these arrows, I will just simply click the remove arrows. So that's it.
Sumifs function. It is a function that sums cells that meet multiple criteria. It can be used to sum values when adjacent cells meet criteria based on dates, numbers, and text. So we have here data presented, and in this Sumifs function, we would like to know the total sales for this below criteria. So for example, we have here a special order that the customer has purchased in the location of the vegan. So in that, we can just simply put or enter the formula equals Sumifs. So here we can just double click. And for the sum range, we can click here the total amount. Control Shift down for the shortcut method. Comma, and then here go to the location, and then Control Shift down, and then comma. Then we can just simply click here to begin, and comma, and category, then comma, and just click here special order, then enter. So it gives me now here the amount. And next is we would like also to know the total sales of the book of pie that in the category of pies that is being purchased in Clarine. So in that equals Sumifs. For the sum range again for the total amount, comma, then go to the location, comma, and then click here Clarine, comma, and then go to category, comma, then click here pies, comma, then go to product, comma, and just click here the book of pie, enter. So now it gives me amount. Countifs. Countifs will count the number of cells that meet a single criterion or multiple criteria in the same or different ranges. Countifs function will help you to know how many records of a certain type you have in your Excel spreadsheet. So here in my example, I would like to find out how many goods were sold of pies that the customer has purchased in the location of Luon. So for that, let's put here the formulas. Equals Countifs. So here we can just double click. For the criteria range 1, let's go directly to the location. Control Shift down, then comma, and just click here Luon, and comma, and for the category, Control Shift down, comma, and then click here pies, enter. So we have here 1 pies that is being purchased. Averageifs. Averageifs function calculates the average of numbers in a range that meet 1 or more criteria. It includes logical operators and wildcards for partial matching. So in the Averageifs function, we would like to know the average for this criteria. For example, for the special order, we would like to know the average of it that is being purchased in the location of to begin. So in that, we can just simply put or enter the formula. Averageifs. In Averageifs, we just go to the total amount, comma, and go directly to the location, comma, and just simply click here to begin, comma, and then go to category, and then special order, then click enter. So now it gives me the average here. So that's it for the Sumifs, Countifs, and Averageifs. If function. If function runs a logical test and returns one value for a true result and another for a false result. Basically, it allows the user to check for a condition and then decide on what you want in return if that condition is true and what you want in condition if that is false. So here are data presented, and we would like to know if this customer or all of these customers have already paid or not yet fully paid for the products that they had brought or purchased. So in that, we will now put or enter the formula. Equals if. So for the logical test, we can click here the amount due in this equals 0, then comma, and then open quotation for paid, close quotation, comma, then another quotation for not fully paid, then close quotation, and then enter. So it says here that not fully paid. It means that the customer Interact Limited has not yet fully paid for the product that she or he had purchased. So all we have to do in order to apply this to the entire data is just to fill handle. And now it says that not fully paid, meaning that all of this customer has not yet fully paid for the products. For example, if this transaction has already paid, so now it gives paid because this customer has already paid the products that she or he had purchased. 3D formulas. It refers to the same cell or range of cells in several worksheets. In other words, it references not only a range of cells but also a range of worksheet names. The key point is that all of the reference sheets should have the same pattern and have the same data type. So we have here the different information with the different tabs of transaction. So first is the week 1, the week 2, and the week 4. As you can see, the data presented is similar, or the structure of it is similar. We have here the invoice number, the title, and then the data presented. So as you can see here, the total sales for July, we are going to add them up to find the total sales. In order that, we put equal sign and then sum. Next, we go to the week 1 and then click here, comma, and then week 2, then click here, and then comma, and then the last week, then enter. So here it gives me with this amount. In using this formula is a bit tricky, but what is the most convenient way in order to find the total sales easier is using the 3D formula because it is dynamic. So in using this, equal sign, sum. Then go to the week 1, and then click here, and then drag. As you can see in the formula bar, after this week 1, we put colon because we add this week 4. As you could observe, there is a quotation, so we need to delete this because we only need this single quotation, which is the start quotation and the last quotation, and we also need one exclamation, and then enter. So here it gives me with a similar amount of total sales. So
As mentioned, 3D formula is dynamic, meaning when we add another sheet in between what we have selected, the total sales will be changed and the transactions in the week 3 will be added for the total sales.
trim function. In the trim function, it is used to remove the extra spaces from the start and end of the cell value. This is quite useful when we have the same values in a column, but some of the cells contain extra spaces. By this trim function, we can remove the extra spaces from any cell. So here, as we have data presented, we can see in the customers list that there are more spaces or extra spaces that can be seen. So here, like in the middle, in front, or in the start, so I would like to look at this customer list with no more spaces. So first, in this column E, right click and then insert. So now it gives me a brand new column. In this, we can now enter the formula, trim. So see, we can see now the trim here. So double click. So we can select, for example, for this Interact Limited, and then enter. As you can see here, a small square box green. If it gives you like this, the cross sign or the plus sign, the block one, you can just drag until the last, and it gives me with this complete with no more spaces.
Remove duplicates. Sometimes duplicate data is useful, and sometimes it just makes it harder for us to understand the data. When you use the Remove Duplicates feature, the duplicate data will be permanently deleted. So I suggest before you delete the duplicates, it's a good idea to copy the original data to another worksheet so you don't accidentally lose any information. To do that, highlight first our data, Control C, and click on New Worksheet. Press Enter to paste. And to remove the duplicates, click any single cell inside the data set. On the Data tab, in the Data Tools group, click Remove Duplicates. The following dialog box appears. If we have headers in our data, we need to ensure that this box is checked. Leave all boxes checked, or if you have multiple columns, a list will be given to you on which columns you want this feature to apply. Then you can click the columns as needed, but for this data, we just want to know what towns or orders are coming from. So we leave it as it is. We click OK. As you can see, there are 38 duplicate values found and removed, and only 12 unique values remain. Excel already removes all identical rows. Now we are showing the locations of our customers.
Auto filter. This function allows us to see the data immediately. In this case, I want to filter the category because I want to know how many customers bought cakes. Auto filter can be located in the Data tab. Here, we can see the word filter. We're gonna click this one to get the drop-down boxes and select this one. Click Text Filter containing the category of cakes and then click OK. So this is the result of what I filtered. There are 12 customers who bought cakes starting from July 1 to July 15 of the month. So this is the power of the auto filter function. Pivot table. It is a table of grouped values that aggregates the individual items of a more extensive table within one or more discrete categories. This includes sums, average, or other statistics. In this case, I want to know how much total amount still unpaid by the customers from Tagbilaran City only. To perform this, go to Insert and then click Pivot Table. And then in this case, I want to create the pivot table in the new worksheet. So I will gonna click this and OK. So this is the result, a blank sheet. I want to check these boxes located in the upper right-hand corner, preferably the customer, and the filtered location containing the Tagbilaran City only. So we're gonna type Tagbilaran City and then click OK. Click the location and then the amount due. And here is the result. The total sum of the amount due is 17,818.43 pesos. This amount are still unpaid by the customer from Tagbilaran City only. So this is the power of the pivot table function.
There you have it. Those are the 20 functions and features for accountants in Microsoft Excel. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.